Welcome back to this week's episode of the MovieBabble Podcast. Yet again, I think we had no call-in last week. We have no call-in again. Just a couple scheduling conflicts, but anyways, it is myself, Brennan, hosting again this week, and we have Nick on today. How's it going, Nick?
It's good. No one else is ever joining the pod again. It's just us. Happy to be here.
Two-man show from now on, talking about movies. It's pretty great.
I'll do it with you anytime, buddy.
Love to hear it. So we had a pretty decently busy week, I'd say, just in terms of content and in terms of films that came out, whether it be streaming, whether it be in theaters only. We did see Reminiscence come out, which was a dual release, theaters and HBO Max. The Lisa Joy directed and written project starring Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson dropped to pretty dismal results at the box office and pretty middling reviews, but we'll get into that. She is the wife of Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother. Almost said Christopher Nolan's husband. Christopher Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan. So that film dropped. We also had Annette, which did launch in theaters a couple weeks ago. That landed on Prime this weekend. We also had the Rebecca Hall-led horror vehicle, The Night House, which I really enjoyed. Can't wait to talk about that one. Nick saw it like 10 years ago.
Yep.
Sundance 2020. And then obviously we got our MovieBabble Club pick of the week. Very excited to get into that at the end. That'll be Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners from 2013. We also had Paw Patrol hit theaters and Paramount Plus this weekend, but I don't think we'll be talking about that much. Other than
didn't see that one, unfortunately. Sorry.
Other than a wholesome note is I was working at the theaters on Saturday, and I saw a little kid come in. He was probably 3, maybe 2. His parents said it's his first trip out to the theaters ever, so it was kind of sweet.
Oh, that's cute. Good for that guy.
Coming to see Paw Patrol. He was like, he was ready. He was pulling out their legs, saying, let's go, and he was like running in to the theater, so pretty cool.
That's cute. Apparently the movie's getting good reviews, though, so...
Yeah, it is.
His first experience was a good one.
Yeah, I was reading how it's much different than the shows in the respect that it's actually got something there for the parents, too, so...
Well, probably won't see it, but that's good.
What's your first? How about you? What's your first movie theater trip? Do you remember?
No idea.
No idea?
Honestly, it might... I don't know if... I have a vivid memory of going to see Elf with my dad and him falling asleep about 10 minutes in. But other than that, I feel like it was probably some kind of Disney movie. Isn't that how it always starts? You know, some animated movie.
Yeah. I got a ticket in my room of a child ticket for Finding Nemo. And I say that's my first because it sounds good.
It does sound good. Sounds really, really good. You were meant to be on this podcast.
So we're going to go with that. Anyway, so we'll get right into Reminiscence this weekend. So is this a movie you ever want to reminisce about or what?
No, not really. Unfortunately. It's one of those where I will never say I strongly dislike this movie. It's totally fine. It exists. And it's kind of a bummer because I feel like this is kind of one of those movies where I always talk on this podcast where I really just want my $50 to $60 million movie with big movie stars in it. I want that kind of movie, and this is it. And it's just not good. It's just very, very average. We'll get into particulars later, but yeah, it's just a pretty average movie. I can see why it bombed pretty hard this weekend.
Yeah, I was actually really excited for it just because I love science fiction. I love sci-fi films. I think it's probably my favorite genre of movie, and I hadn't really seen many promo material for this thing, but I did see the trailer about 10 times. Pretty much every trip to the theaters Reminiscence played for me. That was like my free guy for everyone else. Just I nonstop saw this thing. So after the first time watching it, I was kind of shaky on that, but then saw the trailer like 10 more times, and then I was pretty sold. I was excited, so I went out opening night, and I didn't love this thing either, but I did find enjoyment in it. I think Hugh Jackman's always just kind of good You know, he brings a solid presence. We'll get more into that later on in the show, but I think he always brings a pretty solid presence to the screen. But I think the real scene stealer here is Rebecca Ferguson, who kind of owns this movie.
Yeah, I feel like every time I see her, I want her to be in a better movie. You know, I think she's so good. And other than the Mission Impossible movies, she's in a lot of just odd, odd movies. She was in The Snowman. Remember that movie?
I do.
That was memed into like, I don't know, non-existence. The lead character's name is Harry Hole. That's just very tough. Greatest Showman, which people love, but I think is abysmal. Then she was the villain in The Kid Who Would Be King. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
She was the villain that showed up in the third act of that movie. And then she was in Men in Black International as a person with four arms, I think.
I remember that.
And then she was in Doctor Sleep as Rose the Hat.
And I mean, that movie's got a little bit of a following now. Small one, but
I've been meaning to check out the director's cut because apparently it's a lot better and it fleshes her story of it all out. Because like when I first watched it in theaters, her being in it was just very bizarre. Her whole clan of people who eat children or whatever they do. Uh, but it's like 3 hours long, so I just haven't gotten around to it. Maybe for Halloween. But yeah, she's really good in this movie. She's really, really good. I think she's so talented. And I just kind of hope good things for her at all times.
yeah, yeah, she is really good. I think every time she's in something, she's solid. We'll see her in Dune in a couple months.
Oh yeah, get it back on track.
Yeah, so I mean, she's always busy though. She is, and lately, especially, she's been quite busy. Like the last few years, I've been seeing her pop up a lot, and I'm just happy that she kind of got a role like this because I do feel like she really did own it. Even though her character wasn't 100% fleshed out, I don't think it fully needed to be in a way. Or she brought a lot of mystery to the movie. Could have been done a lot better, sure, but she was really good in the role.
Yeah, I think that's the most troubling piece of this is that her character is positioned as kind of the most important piece of this movie, right? So I guess we should probably explain the movie since no one's seen it apparently. But so it's this big Westworld esque thing where you can go back and revisit memories. The water levels are rising everywhere. People hate the world, so they just disappear into the past and kind of just live off their own memories. Rebecca Ferguson comes into Hugh Jackman's office one day. He runs this machine that takes people back in time, and they spark up a relationship, and then she goes missing soon after. So he's trying to figure out where she is and uncovering all these, like her connection to the seedy underbelly of everything in the process. And yeah, I don't really. The movie really tries. It really hinges so hard on their relationship together because it tries to make all these pseudo intellectual points about time and our relationships to it. There's one line that made me laugh really hard where Hugh Jackman in voiceover, he says something like, "Memory is a bead on the necklace of time." And you're like, what the fuck does that mean? You know, it's one of those where it's trying to sound smart, but when you actually think about it, it's like, wait, does this make any sense? I guess it's just very stupid. But yeah, the movie hinges on their relationship because it's him trying to recover memory and love and all that other junk, and it just doesn't really work. You know, they have two scenes together, and then she goes missing, so you don't really get that immediate connection from the start. So you're kind of wondering why you should care the whole time, or at least I was.
Yeah, that was a problem. That was a problem. I think the movie's nice to look at. Visually,
oh, definitely, I agree.
Yeah, and you can see where that $60 million budget came into play, right? Kind of reminds me of Joker. Really nice to look at, but maybe everything inside isn't the best, right? And it does look great, but I just wasn't that invested in a lot of these characters. I don't think it drew me in as much as it could have. I love a good voiceover, but it just didn't do it for me. Even though Hugh Jackman's got a really nice voice, it just really didn't do it for me.
He's got that good gravelly voice. It's very leading man. You know,
Yeah.
he's just snarling his way through. Well, especially Prisoners. We'll get to that later, but he just has that gravitas. You know.
Yeah, I mean, Also, one prop to this film is the world building. I thought it was really interesting, especially the first act, just how everything got set up. I mean, it's certainly a well built and realized world, I think, in Reminiscence here, but the rest of the movie just isn't all that interesting. I don't hate this movie, but I don't love it either.
Yeah, it's and I called it Westworld-esque. I mean, because even without Lisa Joy's involvement, who is a big showrunner currently on Westworld, you could like the comparisons are so clear. It's these like futuristic technologies and all these certain things. They definitely have a lot of similar themes and just the way they look too. This looks like this could be the same thing. This looks like this. Honestly, it probably should have been an HBO show. You know, this feels like this was a lot of ideas packed into a less than 2 hour movie. It should have been expanded out to some kind of series in some way. But yeah, she's got a lot of ideas. She's the sole writer on this. I think this movie I think has a lot of interesting things going for it that I think that it doesn't really have enough time to kind of explore many of them. You know, because I think the stuff, a lot of the right with the world building is really interesting because the water level has risen so far and crime is all over the place. So it's kind of this. It's not dystopian, but it's certainly like it's close.
Yeah.
It's probably like a couple generations away from being fully dystopian. You know,
Yeah.
where everyone's just descending into chaos, and I feel like that's a good idea to bring like memory and nostalgia as the driving force of this movie. I think that's a really good idea because people are like, you know, this world sucks. We kind of just want to go back in time. I think that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it's jumping all over the place in a way that it's not super coherent. I mean, you can follow the story. It's pretty easy to follow, you know. But I just don't. It's just not. It doesn't grip you at all. I don't know. I think this would have been a better idea as a series.
Yeah, interesting point. I don't think we'll reminisce on it too much more. So
See what you did there.
let's head on to Annette, which it landed on Amazon Prime this weekend after it had a couple weeks making the rounds in theaters. I think you and me both saw it in theaters.
Yes, I did. I was
Hmm.
making sure that 'cause I feel like everything I heard about this movie is it's just the most bizarre thing. So it was like I had to see it in theaters. Couldn't wait till Prime.
Yeah, and it is quite bizarre. So let's get into it. Did you like it? I've been curious because I have no idea.
Hmm, that is a great question, and I feel like with this movie, it's a very loaded question because it's so weird. I think so. I think I liked it. Leos Carax is a director who is I think is generally considered one of the better like international filmmakers. Um, I don't really have a lot of experience with him. I don't think I've seen any of his films. I've been meaning to watch Holy Motors for a real long time, but I haven't. So I don't have a lot of experience with him, but I did know going in that this movie was going to be insane because he was involved. So I had my guard up in that sense, and it's truly a it is truly a very weird thing to behold.
Yeah, no, it's nuts, and it's kind of the Sparks is the group, right, that does the music for this film.
Yeah,
I don't
a
know if
lot of
it's
Sparks content the past few
that's
months
what I
with
was.
that
Yeah, that's what I
documentary.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you had Edgar Wright. He kind of led that documentary, right?
yeah.
The Sparks Brothers one that came out a couple months ago. So yeah, it's kind of a year of Sparks. Um, it is a bizarre film, and I knew obviously you're getting into that. Everything that came out of Cannes, it kind of pointed towards this is going to be odd. But I'm so happy that it exists. I think that's like that's kind of one of the main things about it. It's kind of cool to see something on this size and stature come out, especially with Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard there, and Simon Helberg's fantastic too. He's good.
Yeah, he's really good in
I
this
haven't seen
movie.
him in too much. Like I know he's a Big Bang Theory guy, which I have not watched. I always found him to be good in Florence Foster Jenkins, which I only saw once, but he kind of was the best part of that movie. Yeah, he was really good here as well.
Unbelievable flex, just cashing in all that Big Bang Theory money and then just going off and doing a Leos Carax movie. It's just amazing by him. Yeah, I think the funniest thing that I was thinking of while watching this movie is people who because like Prime, like they just released the Tomorrow War and all this stuff, and every time they have a new movie, it's just they plaster it all over the front of Prime, and I just think about somebody being just thinking, oh, this is this fun musical with Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard. I know those people, you know. Adam Driver, a great actor, Marion Cotillard from the Batman movies. This will be great. And they watch it and they're like, what the fuck is going on? So that idea of some random person just putting this on Friday night just had me laughing, because it is just, this movie is relentlessly weird. Like it takes every opportunity to make things as bizarre as possible. It's so funny in that way.
Yeah, and certainly it'd be great if Prime had some filming capabilities going on for audience members at home. I want to see
Yeah, really.
how fast people turn this thing off.
I think because the first scene I think is conventionally kind of cool, because they enter with the Sparks singing their song, and there's voiceover by one of them telling everyone to stop talking and don't breathe for the
Yeah.
next 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is really funny. And they start the song, and it's this whole meta thing, and then Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard come out, and they're like walking down LA, and it's really cool. And then the movie starts, and it takes a major left turn.
Yeah, no, it's odd. And obviously we knew this thing was all going to be in song, which was kind of, I wouldn't say the big selling point. I mean, I don't think you need to really sell this thing. It's interesting enough that it sells itself. But this was like the first thing that really came out about this movie several months ago, that it was going to be all in song, and it really was. Like it was, they didn't really hesitate on that, and they stuck the landing for me. Like it really did flow like that. I thought it was going to be a little bit jarring, but I enjoyed it and appreciated it.
Yeah, it has a lot. Well, it has way more in common with some of the more classic European musicals than it does with Hollywood musicals, where it's. I thought a lot of like Jacques Demy films while watching this, where it's a lot of talk singing, and I mean everything's in song, but it's a lot of like they're filling the gaps between big numbers with talk singing and other stuff like that, and a lot of vibrant colors. So yeah, it is pretty crazy. I knew that Marion Cotillard was a great singer. Obviously, I mean, but and we knew Adam Driver a little bit from his one scene, that amazing scene in Marriage Story, where he sings, what is it, "Being Alive," I think is the song. But watching him kind of carry this entire movie was pretty staggering. I didn't quite know he had this type of performance in him, and I was really impressed.
He can do anything, I swear.
He
Like
really can. He's so good.
I think he's really flexed it these last few years, and he's at the top right now of his game. Like
I think
he's
so.
really
Yeah.
operating at an insane level, and I think we're almost getting. I'm not going to say too much content from him or too many movies from him, because um, he's great, but we're getting a lot of Adam Driver lately, a lot of films, and we got Last Duel coming out later on this year. We got House of Gucci coming out later on this year.
Crazy.
He's a busy guy, and I think it's personally, I think it's pretty cool.
He's just one of our best actors. I mean, even though I didn't realize he could do this, like even before that, I was like, he's just unbelievable. He's so good. But yeah, the thing, I think the Adam Driver stuff on stage is so funny, because it's equal parts actually funny, and then it's this weird meta like comment on the very nature of how comedians work, you know, because he's up there talking to the audience about how he's supposed to give these witty observations about life that they're supposed to laugh at, and he's telling them exactly when to laugh, you know, and they all eat it up, and then it takes it to the extreme of it all. I don't want to spoil it, but it's so funny where he mentions how comedians are supposed to kind of bare their souls a little bit and be like share like really embarrassing stuff about their lives, whether it's true or not, but to make people laugh out of like secondhand embarrassment and stuff like that. And he goes into this long speech about how awful he is, and the crowd just turns on him, and it's so funny. They just go crazy and they start singing about how much of a monster he is. It's really good. I loved all of that stuff. I thought it was so goofy and weird.
That's a very good scene. That's that's a very good sequence. I second all that. I love those scenes. All the stand up scenes, very good. And the movie kind of, it doesn't, obviously doesn't open with one, but there's one very early on that I think sets the tone really well for the rest of the movie, and just kind of how
Mm.
bizarre it's gonna be. What did you think of? Because this was all the talk, I think, coming out of its festival debut. What do you think of the baby, the puppet baby?
See, I didn't know any of that was coming
Mm,
at all. So, um, well, I was curious about it because you watch the trailer and it kind of hides what's going on with the baby.
right.
You know that the baby starts singing at the end. They tease at that, but I didn't see any of this, like anything on Twitter or anywhere else about how it's a puppet. So when that showed up, I thought that was the funniest thing. It was so baffling. It was really, really funny.
Man, it was hilarious. I don't know. It was very weird to look at, unsettling almost to look at that
Oh,
baby.
absolutely. I was terrified by the parts.
One of the creepiest things I've seen in just movies this year. That baby, but I think we won't go into it, but I think it does kind of pay off for the story.
Oh yeah, I think it goes in a really interesting way. Yeah, I don't know quite how to. This is one of those movies where people say you gotta watch stuff more than once
Mm,
to get it. I think this is actually one of those where I don't know quite how I feel about this movie because it's such a weird assault of stuff. You know, like it's just so many weird, strange things, and it's clearly a satire because the Adam Driver character is this monster, and it plays into that so weirdly and funny, and it's clearly some kind of comment on the fall of some great man or whatever. And there's a little bit of Star Wars Born in there. The bones of the story are actually pretty simple.
right.
And it's just like the rise and fall, and then there's a baby. You take advantage of the baby, stuff like that for their talent, and you go from there. But just everything about it is just presented so strangely. So it's kind of hard to discern when the movie wants you to take it seriously, or if it wants you to take it seriously at all. So it's a very very crazy sensory experience, and it's also 2.5 hours long, so it's quite a long experience too.
Yeah,
So
I want to watch this thing again. I think since now it's on Prime, but there's some specific scenes that I really want to rewatch. Like I think there were a lot of scenes that were really good. I love the opening and I love that song. Uh,
mhm.
so maybe start very good opening, but there are definitely a lot of scenes I want to go back and revisit. Both stand-up scenes I think are very worthy of revisiting. Yeah, this is a movie that I don't think it's one of my favorites of the year, but it's certainly interesting enough to beg to be kind of a part of the conversation for a while.
Yeah, you're gonna go back and revisit that sex scene again. Is that what you're gonna look at?
And that came early. That came very early
Very early. I was very not off put. I was just like, whoa, taken aback. Like, oh,
because
this is happening.
that was also massively talked about in the first reactions. So that's something I was anticipating, and I thought it was going to come late. So I was like, oh yeah, we're going to be kind of building to something like that. But no, it was like first 20 minutes, first 25
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then from there, you're just thinking, where is this movie gonna go?
That
And
part isn't
some
even that crazy compared to the rest of the movie.
No, it's not. People overblew that. It's not really that big of a deal. But the movie does. It gets weirder and weirder from there. That's for sure.
Oh,
They go out into a boat. Things happen there. It's all very strange.
there's a lot going on, but I mean, we are happy that it happened. And how do you feel now that you finally got to see it? You're waiting for so long for this,
Yeah, this was part of my movie draft, summer movie draft.
right?
I'm happy. It's one of those. I'm so happy it exists. It's so weird,
Yeah,
and the troll in me thinks it's hilarious that so many people will be seeing this movie that they'll have no idea what to do with it when they watch it. They'll
yeah,
just probably convulse and turn it off, because it is such a weird thing. I don't know, I saw this in theaters, and the few people that were in there with me were so baffled. Like I could hear how it's kind of one of those silences where you can hear how silent it is. If that
mm,
makes sense.
mm,
Like people are kind of wrestling, not saying anything, but they're clearly like aghast to like what's happening. It's great.
Yeah.
Leos Carax, I want to jump into his filmography more because I feel like from everything I hear about Holy Motors, that's seems like it's kind of my bag. So
That's a must
I'm
after
here for
this.
it.
That's a must
Yeah,
watch.
I'm here for all of that weirdness. I don't know if Annette all the way works because I just don't know what I'm looking at half the time. But it's an amazing experience.
Yeah.
101.
Yeah, you drafted well on that one.
Hi, I'm happy. No complaints from me.
Yeah. So now we'll segue into one of our theater exclusives here in the month of August, and that is The Night House from David Bruckner. So you saw this a long time ago, as you said, back at Sundance 2020, which would have been Jan 2020. Um, that's a while back. So you have not seen it since?
No, but it is one of those that has stuck with me since. I think it's really effective, but we'll get to that. But yeah,
Mhm.
I really like this movie. I think it's really good.
Yeah, and I saw it without knowing anything about it. I just knew that you got a very small budgeted horror movie dropping here late in August, and it has pretty good reviews. So I just wanted to check it out.
Hmm.
Went on Friday night, and it got a pretty low cinema score, but I felt like my audience really liked it. Like it kind of had
Hmm.
like, as you said, the silence from Annette, where you hear that rustling. This one was completely dead silent throughout. It was like a Quiet Place almost level silence. And I think there's a scene early on with a. We'll talk about the movie in a sec, but Rebecca Hall is obviously our lead. We have a scene early on with her. She's a teacher. She's speaking to a parent that comes in to talk to her.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
from that point on, no one said or did anything in the theater. Like it was completely locked in from then on out. And yeah, I don't know. I really liked it. So don't want to spoil it too hard because, I mean, that's what I appreciated about it. I had no idea anything about this movie going in. So, I mean, it's essentially Rebecca Hall driven psychological horror movie. Dread is kind of consuming her. Yeah, I don't really want to get into too much about it, but I do want to get into how great it is because I found it to be phenomenal. I
Yeah.
think it's one of my favorites of the year.
Yeah, I think the only thing you really need to know is that her kind of what the trailer tells you. It's a pretty good trailer, and it doesn't really spoil a lot of the cool stuff in it. And hints at it. But yeah, like her husband died in apparent suicide shortly before, and she starts to learn stuff about what her husband was doing, and it gets weirder and weirder, and it almost shifts into three different movies. It turns into like a loud haunted house movie, then it's this kind of mystery thriller, trying to figure out what's going on. And then it turns into an all-out, kind of amazing, like just great horror imagery filled finale capper. That's really good. There's some amazing horror imagery in this movie that I don't want to spoil. Obviously, it's just a really impressive, like well-made movie. I'm surprised that the cinema score isn't that high on it because to me it feels like it's one of those where it's a movie that does work for mainstream audiences because there's a lot of really good jump scare ish scares, not quite your standard jump scares, but really good like visceral horror moments. And
Mm-hmm.
then like for people like us a little bit who kind of look at these things a little slightly deeper, where it's these really good thematic beats to it too. I'm surprised it's not more beloved by people who have seen it so far.
Yeah, they pulled the wrong audiences.
I guess they did. I don't know. I think it's great.
Yeah, it is a good movie, and as you said, that's right. It does have a lot of pretty deep thematic elements to it. I didn't really expect that going in, really, but it did. I think, as I said, it there's a lot of dread following Rebecca Hall's character. The film deals a lot with death, obviously with what's up with her husband, and I think it did it in a incredible manner. And as you said, it's also kind of a mystery thriller. You watch this movie unfold, it is quite riveting to watch.
Yeah, especially that second act that just becomes totally different. And it's also one of those too where you think that the movie's going to tease you for a really long time, and then all of a sudden it's bang. There's this crazy horror sequence where like loud noises are clanging all over the place and things are happening, and it just really changes what you expect out of this movie, and then it kind of settles back down, and then more crazy stuff happens later on. But it's a really good there's a really good like opening sequence. You're like, oh wow, this is I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
I'm ready for where this is going to take me.
Yeah, this film has a lot of solid, like, I'd say 4 to 5 minute sequences throughout that I think are pretty top notch in terms of kind of sending you on a trip. Um, there's one, I think, I'm not going to say where actually, but it is in there, but it's about a 5 minute or so sequence that it was pretty jaw dropping. You don't really, it might be the one you're talking about. Uh, but yeah, it was pretty good. About 5 minutes, just kind of pure insanity, very unsettling. It's one of those movies where you're in the theater and you kind of feel it in your guts. You feel it in your insides. Like you're not
Hmm.
scared in the way that you're scared for something to pop out, but you're feeling pretty sick about the story you're watching, I'd say.
Yeah, I think the Rebecca Hall character is definitely she's dealing with a lot. Um, I'm curious to see if people think that it is like what she's going through is realized in like a responsible manner. I'm curious if people think it's going overboard or not. But her like she's dealing with a lot. And her performance is really good too because there's some at some points where she's kind of there's one point where she's truly drunk. She's chugging back stuff, but she's kind of goofy and like kind of like laughing at some of the hysteria that's happening. It's a really good lead performance from her that I think it's like we've seen in so many lesser of these movies where it's just the woman in peril and uh, she's just scared at everything. But Rebecca Hall takes a few moments to kind of realize the ridiculousness of this and laugh at it, and kind of like chew the scenery a little bit. And I really appreciated that. I thought she was so good in this movie.
Yeah, no, she's great. Um, this is definitely going to be a movie because it didn't open super wide. It got a pretty wide release, but it wasn't everywhere this weekend, and it also didn't do massive numbers at the box office. I think people are going to find this movie at some point and kind of cling to it, wherever that may be. I know that since it is one of those Disney Fox merger movies, it has to go to HBO first. So I do hope a lot of people on film Twitter find this thing at some point because I think it is certainly worth the watch. And if you can make it out to a theater, I would certainly do it for this movie.
Yeah, I imagine because we'll probably go to Hulu at some point. Yeah, because it's the Fox part. That's where they put all the Fox stuff, the
Right.
stuff that doesn't fit the Disney mold. But yeah, this movie is it's really terrific, and the director David Bruckner. Did you see that movie a few years ago? It was called The Ritual. It was a Netflix original.
I have not.
So that was his last movie, and it feels like in a lot of ways is like a training run for this movie,
Hmm.
and it's one of those where it's weird stuff happening in the woods. One of those movies,
Yeah.
and it's kind of teasing you along for the first two acts. You think that the stuff that it's kind of like gesturing at, or it's like the stuff that you think may come. It's one of those where you're like, the horror's probably never going to come, right? It's one of those movies, but then it comes, and it's really fun. And it's really really cool. It's a really cool third act, and it plays a lot with the same kind of. I don't want to spoil. How do I say this? But there's a lot of point of view horror in a lot of ways where like you see stuff in the woods and you're like, oh, that's a branch, and then it moves. It's really creepy.
Right.
It's really good, and there's similar stuff to that with I guess I'd say profiles in this movie that are amazing, that are really good. It's like unbelievable horror imagery. So I think he's a talented guy. He worked on the he did one of the segments on the VHS movie a few years ago,
Hmm.
and he's actually working on a new Hellraiser movie currently with the same writers as this movie too. So, but also David Goyer is involved in that, so we'll see how
He
good
produced
it is.
this,
But
so he was a producer on this
yeah,
one.
that's true. But so yeah, he's getting snatched up to do more the horror stuff. So I think he's a really talented guy, and this is a good movie. It's kind of one of those where it uses a lot of the exact same like stuff you've seen before in other movies, like spooky house, spooky I guess horror iconography. I don't want to say too much, but there's a lot of familiar beats to this movie, but it kind of blends them together for something that feels not super familiar. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I agree. So that is the Night House. Certainly worth the watch. Now we'll get into this week's. pick for the Movie Babble Club, kind of the week of Denis Villeneuve. I feel like he's been trending on Twitter every single day, whether it be positive or negative news. Um, and I mean, we found out he has a film Twitter account to check out movie news and such. So this is where I ask you, Nick, since you picked us to talk about Prisoners, are you Denis Villeneuve?
Yeah, it's me. It's me all along. I've been making millions of dollars on movies, but I choose to be on this podcast.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, I mean,
yeah,
he's
that was
been
funny.
he's been everywhere. He's kind of been, for better or for worse. I think this is kind of cool for Dune because I swear every day Dune is trending because of Denis Villeneuve and stuff he talks about.
Yeah.
So
You wonder if he's doing it just for the press, because I feel
yeah,
like
it's
he's never been a guy to like talk a lot. I don't know. I feel like he's
no,
kind of mysterious. You know.
yeah, maybe he just feels he's got a voice now after dropping so many bangers last decade. Um, so we'll get into Prisoners here. I'll throw it to you since this was your pick for the week. Open it up here.
Yeah, I had never seen Prisoners before. I figured, well, we had a Hugh Jackman movie come out this week. Dune is right on the horizon, so I figured, why not? And yeah, this is a not hilarious movie. Very, very serious movie, which I think a lot of people have seen. It's pretty popular by this point. But Hugh Jackman's kid and Viola Davis and Terrence Howard's kid get abducted in the middle of the street on Thanksgiving, and then it's they don't really team with Jake Gyllenhaal's detective, but they kind of connect, and it's trying to figure out, race against time to figure out kidnapper, where the kids are, all that stuff. Very harrowing movie, and it's pretty good. I think people have elevated this movie to kind of like instant classic like stuff, and I don't know. I don't quite fall in that camp, but I think it's a very good movie.
Yeah, so out of just before we do jump into this one, how many have you seen any of his? Because this is his first English movie. Obviously, he's a Canadian Quebecois director initially, right? So he did four French movies before jumping into Hollywood movie making. Have you seen any of his prior to Prisoners? Maybe Ensemble?
I don't think so. I've been meaning to for a while because he did Polytechnique as well. Maelstrom is
Mm-hmm.
another one of them
Mm-hmm.
as well. But yeah, I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah, so now I mean, I've seen Polytechnique, but this is now me finishing up. I had seen Prisoners a while ago when I was much younger, but this is I've kind of now as of kind of the last 12 months now seen all his English language movies plus Polytechnique, but I know Ensemble is like highly revered by some people. I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
point to that as his best movie, so that's certainly the direction I want to go in before Dune drops in October. But yeah, for me, I love this movie. I do love Prisoners. Absolutely adore it. I think Hugh Jackman's overacting is great here.
Oh, unbelievable, unbelievable overacting job.
And I think he does a good job here. And I also think you have, maybe if you don't think personally this is an instant classic movie for you, I do think we have an instantly memorable character out of Paul Dano here.
Ooh, interesting. I guess so. I mean, there is a lot with that character, and he's really good.
Yeah, and I just feel
Um,
like it's a performance that's always kind of talked about in this movie, whether it be just kind of following the genre of Paul Dano getting beat up or not. But
oh yeah, there's something I would love to just study him. He just loves playing awful people or just people who get their like everything beat in. So I don't know what that is.
yeah, I mean, okay, I kind of feel free now because we can talk spoilers for this film since
Yeah, let's do it.
it's our
We're
movie
doing it.
Babble Club picture. But oh my goodness, he gets put through the ringer, and it's kind of hard to watch.
It really is the scene that's really well crafted where they show his bloodied face and his swollen shut eyes is really effective.
Oh my
It's
God,
really really good.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's when you
really
think
tough.
it's going to end for him. But Viola Davis, who she's there, she's Terrence Howard's character's wife. They kind of bring her over. I thought at that point she'd kind of find some compassion in it and get them to stop, but she's like, nah, keep it going. Like
Yeah.
she's soft with him, but she like Terrence Howard. He's kind of his character's kind of the moral compass here in the group. He's kind of trying to get Hugh Jackman to stop this. Like, maybe this isn't our guy. Maybe he didn't take our daughters. I think that kind of shocked me. Viola Davis's character is like, let's just kind of keep it going. He's gotta tell us.
Yeah, I think so. The one of the things that I think doesn't quite work about this movie is the way it uses torture. I think it's trying to do some kind of morality thing with torture about like, oh, it's not the right way to do it, but it helped get the job done, or some weird thing. I don't think this movie fully reckons with the torture that it's depicting. I don't think it's not condemning it, but I also think it's not also being like, yo, torture is sick either. It's in a weird middle ground. I don't know if it totally understands what it's going for there. I'm not quite sure. That's one of the things I struggled with.
Yeah, that's a decent point. Um, yeah, it is certainly a movie that it does play a big. The torture elements do play a big part in its third act and kind of where Hugh Jackman's character goes. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
does he kind of deserve some repercussions for what he had been putting Paul Dano through for the first little bit of this
Mm-hmm.
movie? Um, I was pretty gripped though for a lot of the film. Like for me, it's a movie that where I just couldn't wait to see what was gonna happen scene after scene, and a lot of it is being interested in the interactions between the characters. I think I was pretty riveted between like just kind of anytime you see characters kind of approach each other on the screen. I was pretty excited for what was going to happen next, especially as you said, Jake Gyllenhaal. He's the detective here. When he sort of starts picking up on maybe Hugh Jackman's got a foot in this somehow, and he kind of follows him over to the liquor store. I thought a lot of those interactions were pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's if for a movie that's over 2.5 hours, there's something like shit's about to go down in every scene, which is why I think people like it so much because there's you're seconds away from someone blowing up in someone else's face or something crazy happening. And I think the movie is more interested in just displaying the craziness of it all and not totally exploring. I ultimately think this movie is like kind of a trashy airport novel that's done up really good by Denis Villeneuve, who's one of the better directors working, and Roger Deakins and Johan Johansson's score that I think makes it sound. It has a really good like string score that makes the movie sound more intellectual than I think it actually is. But it is so watchable, for better or for worse, because it's a lot of awful stuff happening. But it's true. You're on the edge of your seat, being like, "What's going to happen next? Like, what is this?" And I think it does tap into something there. But yeah, I was just hooked watching it.
Yeah, Deacon's cinematography, beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
He's just a god. He's the best. He's so good.
I love the takes in this movie. Just those nice long takes that he's kind of
Mm-hmm.
we've become accustomed to with him. I think it's shot quite well.
Yeah, and the washed out cinematography, everything is just like oppressively bleak and white and gray.
Yeah,
It's really terrific.
yeah. Did you find? Because for me, I thought everything came together really well in that third act. I think we had obviously you have David Dastmalchian come in here, and he's creepy as usual, playing his usual creepy self.
He is always the creepy guy. I kind of feel bad for him.
Him and Paul Dano to me are in the same category of like
Yeah,
actor.
I feel like he's just been kind of because he's kind of got a creepy face. He's been typecast.
And he
I
he
hope
knows
he
it.
enjoys his work.
No, he does. He does. I think. I
Yeah.
mean, I saw Dave Batista tweet the other day how he wants him and Jason Momoa in a buddy cop movie or something like that. And funny enough, Colin is the one who I think brought that idea to the internet. Remember that
Oh yeah,
a
no
few
when yeah
yeah,
yeah.
a few months ago. Colin tweeted that, and then Dave Batista responded. So I guess Dave Batista that's been Colin's put something in Dave Batista's mind because he's been thinking about that for months because
Yeah, he's been speaking it. He's spoken into
yeah,
existence.
because yeah, Dave Batista tweeted last week how he wants that to happen. I saw David Desmalchian respond and say, "Can I be the creepy guy that you guys find at the store or something like that?" I'm like, yeah, like he knows. He's pretty self-aware of his typecast.
Yeah, he is good at it. So if he's okay with it, then go for it, man. Because he's very, very good at it. He's very good in this movie.
Yeah, no, he is. But for me, I liked how a lot of this movie came together in the third act. I like Jake Gyllenhaal on this movie. I think he fit the role well, his blinky self.
I'm I'm so happy you mentioned this because I have no idea what he's doing in this movie. I, I'm so fascinated by it because he made a choice, and I
Yeah,
respect him for making the choice, but I can't tell if it's good or not. You know,
yeah,
because well, first of all, his character name is Detective Loki, which is hilarious.
I laughed.
It's very very funny, but he has the dude bro like neck tat of I don't even know what it is, but then he has his collared shirts buttoned up all the way, and he has his hair slicked back.
Yeah,
He's going for something in this movie, and I
I
don't know
bought it.
quite what
For
it
me,
is. And
for me, I bought
I
it.
don't know if it works, but yeah. So it works for you though.
Yeah, it works for me. I like Jake Gyllenhaal on this thing. However, the names of some of the characters are bad. Like Detective Loki's funny. First time they mentioned it, I laughed. And then Paul Dano's character being Alex Jones is just
Oh yeah, does not age well. No, not at all.
maybe in 2013 you get a pass, but that is so funny. It took me like four times them saying it for me to get over it. Alex Jones.
It's just tough. It's a very common name, but it's tough. You just can't use it anymore without us going to that Alex Jones. It's very very tough for all those people named that out there.
Uh, yeah, I feel bad. Like I'm so immature for this, but it was funny.
Yeah, it's what are the other weird names in this? I feel like there were some other ones.
Even I guess Keller Dover, Hugh Jackman's lead name's kind of odd.
Yeah, that's a very macho, fake macho guy name.
Yeah,
It's very funny. I'm trying to look him up. Oh, Terrence Howard's Franklin Birch. That's not too weird.
it's not bad.
No, I feel like that we got them all. But
Yeah, Keller
oh,
Dover's interesting.
there's one guy named Officer Wedge. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Detective Loki
Just
and
scroll through IMDb to see the funny names here.
Detective Loki and Alex Jones. That's like two like you can debate what's weirder there. That's a funny pairing.
Yeah, that's top tier right there.
Yeah, this movie is pretty acted the shit out of though. I think like it is. So where does this fall for you in the ranking of Denis Villeneuve?
Yeah, it's. I was thinking about it. I don't know because I guess I'll look at it in terms of his English language movies because I haven't seen his other four, but I would say it's probably at the bottom of his English language movies because I kind of feel like Villeneuve has turned into the Christopher Nolan dude bro guy. Like
Yeah.
people are now shifting towards like Denis Villeneuve is really really good. But it's like yeah we all know he's great. Like we're not saying like come on guys. So he's kind of in that same mold as the Nolan bros, but I think he's a really good director. I think he's very talented, but I think Prisoners is. I just think it's the least interesting script, if I'm being honest, that he's worked with in terms of his English language stuff. Because his directing is really good. It's just really, really, really good stuff, and he's great with performances. But yeah, I think this is at the bottom. I think Arrival is my favorite of his English language stuff. How about you?
This could be my favorite, maybe. It's tough though, but what I really appreciate about him is I think there's a lot of diversity in what he's put out. Like
Hmm.
going from this to Enemy to Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner. I think there's a lot of uniqueness. Obviously, they all have his touch, as
Yeah.
like of course, but I think you can watch a lot of like you watch his movies, you're seeing a lot of different things get put on the screen each time. Arrival's definitely rivaling it, as is Blade Runner 2049. Probably those three for me, Prisoners, Arrival, and Blade Runner are like in a top tier. But I love me some Sicario. That movie hits.
Yeah, I wonder if that movie's legacy has been squandered a little bit by the sequel. The sequel's just not good. Trump was like, what isn't Trump would have been like, yeah, that's what happens at the border. This movie's sick, or something like that.
He used footage from the second movie to like say something. Yeah, something about that on Twitter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, you're right. But I did watch it like a month ago, and the first one, and it's still really good. And Benicio del Toro, for me, that's his role. Like he kills that movie.
Oh,
But
so good. So, so good.
yeah, great score too. Oh my God, there's some really good
Oh,
tracks.
absolutely. That's
Yeah,
Deacon's on it again. Just going
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he's put out a lot of good movies here, and I'm gonna probably revisit Enemy 2 in the next couple days. Um, that's another one that's probably his arguably most interesting movie to watch. I think there's because it's a movie that it's before he kind of got to have big budgets and solid budgets, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's his last kind of real tiny movie. I know he said after the Dune, hopefully Dune movies, he said he wants to go back to more mid-budget movies like Prisoners, um, kind of that level of filmmaking. But yeah, Enemy's one that I certainly would recommend if you haven't checked it out to anyone listening.
Yeah, Enemy's good, really good. Well, I guess two really good Jake Gyllenhaal performances in that movie. That is a puzzle box of a movie, and it's really interesting. It's one of those that I've watched a few times too. I think you get something new out of it every time. Really,
Yeah,
really terrific.
for sure. So that is this week's episode of the MovieBabble Podcast. We'll be back next week with Candyman. How exciting is that? Finally, we have Candyman after over a year of being delayed. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Breaking news: it just moved. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm very excited.
Oh my goodness.
I'm here for Nia DaCosta. She's a great director. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good way to pretty much round out the summer before Shang-Chi comes on the Labor Day weekend. But yeah, so that will be next week. Looking forward to it. As always, you can check out all of our content on the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere, and obviously at themoviebabble.com. That's where to go. And we will be back next week, as always.